The push to buy electric cars. The U.S. announces new fuel economy standards to entice the masses. Plus, the Olympics, they're going green. The steps Paris organizers are taking to make the games more sustainable. And go check on your gardens. The reasons why some top-level gardeners are warning against growing mushrooms. Hello and welcome to EarthxNews, where we focus on conservation, sustainability, and the environment. I'm Christina Thompson. Let's get into some of the biggest headlines facing our planet. The U.S. government announces higher gas mileage requirements under the latest federal rules issued in June. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said it would like to hike corporate average fuel economy requirements to about 50.4 miles per gallon by 2031. That's up from 39.1 miles per gallon currently. The new fuel mileage requirement is barely above the 49 miles per gallon it previously required for 2026 and is among several regulations the administration is using to push car makers to focus on producing EVs. In April, the Environmental Protection Agency issued strict new limits on tailpipe emissions to ensure the majority of new passenger cars and light trucks sold in the United States are either all electric or hybrids in the next 8 years. Joining us now to discuss is former EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate having you.
It's great to be on. Thank you for having me.
So the White House has stressed that it's desired to push Americans towards EVs, and it's instituted some regulatory goals to help aim that progress. Recently, there's been a little bit of some blowback from customers and even auto manufacturers. Can you explain this for us?
Sure. So this is the third regulation as part of the EV or auto CAFE standards in the last few months from three different agencies: EPA, Department of Energy, and now we're hearing from the Department of Transportation. All of this taken together, though, is pushing EVs on the American consumer. And I believe the EPA's estimate of around 67%, two-thirds, will have to be EVs or hybrids by 2032 is still the overall number that will have to be met.
What are some of the benefits that it could have to the environment?
Well, there could be a lot of benefits, and I'm a supporter of EVs, but the administration, they haven't explained how we're going to get there. And there's been a number of officials from the administration who've testified in Congress, and they haven't been able to explain how we're going to get there, how we're going to be able to generate the energy that we need.
So let's talk a little bit about gas-powered cars, light trucks. The original goals put forth by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration were to be at 55 miles per gallon by 2026. They recently revised those goals down to about 49 miles per gallon. Do you know why the change?
I don't know for sure the change. The auto companies have publicly said that they cannot they cannot go with the more stringent requirements. And what happens when you have the more stringent requirements under the DOT regs is if you don't meet those, then the auto companies have to pay very large fines or penalties to the federal government. And we're talking billions of dollars. So what the auto industry said was, if you're going to stick with these more stringent requirements, we're going to be using all of our available cash to pay these penalties instead of investing in new EV cars and new EV technologies. So it was a plea that they made to the administration publicly through a number of media sources and in interviews, where they said that their money would be better spent investing in new technologies than paying penalties. But you also have to remember, if they're paying those penalties, so it was a question of the penalty aspect, and Detroit successfully argued to this administration that instead of paying the penalties, lower the standard, and we use the funds in order to innovate more.
How do you think that the consumers might view these new standards?
Well, I mean, if somebody says, if you ask somebody in a poll walking down the street, do you think cars should be cleaner than they are now? Everybody's going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. Everybody's going to say yes. But when they go to buy and purchase the vehicles, that's where they're making their decision, and that's actually the information, basically voting by purchase. And last year, 1 million EV cars were sold, highest level ever, but that's 1 million out of 16 million. EV cars stay on the lots on average 130 days, I believe, as of last year, to gas-powered cars staying on lots 70 to 80 days. So American consumer is not purchasing the EV cars as quickly as the Biden administration would like them to. The NHTSA regulation for the 50 miles per gallon, that's the fleet average. That means that if an auto company is selling regular gas-powered cars and EVs, they're going to price the EVs lower, and they're going to raise the price of the gasoline-powered cars in order to hit that average. This is not that every single car has to be at 50 miles per gallon. This is an average for all the cars that each company sells. And then what Detroit does, what the auto companies do, is they raise and lower the prices to incentivize purchasing an EV or to disincentivize purchasing a gas-powered car so that fewer of those will be sold.
So do you think then we've seen maybe the end of these mile per gallon changes? And then also, do you think there's a future for gasoline-powered vehicles in the U.S.?
Well, I think there's absolutely a future because we aren't going to be able to generate the electricity that we need for 2/3 of our fleet to be EVs by 2032. So I would say we're going to be needing gasoline-powered cars for at least another generation until either the technology improves or the infrastructure is greatly expanded.
All right. Andrew Wheeler, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your expertise.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
An investigation into whether solar panels from Southeast Asia are harming domestic manufacturing is pushing forward. The U.S. International Trade Commission voted unanimously to pursue the case after a group of U.S. solar panel manufacturers filed a petition earlier last year. In the complaint, the solar panel makers accused Chinese companies with factories in Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam of flooding the U.S. market with panels priced below their cost of production. Industry analysts say the trade panels move is a step that could result in tariffs on the majority of panels imported from those four nations. If the case is successful, companies that bring panels in the U.S. to install on rooftops or build large-scale solar power plants could face higher prices within months. Turning to wildlife news, officials are working to keep a tiny mouse from going extinct in California. The San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, in partnership with several state and federal organizations, recently reintroduced a group of endangered Pacific pocket mice just outside a U.S. military base. Thought to be extinct for 2 decades before being found in the early 90s, the Wildlife Alliance started a conservation, breeding, and reintroduction program for the pocket mice in 2012 to prevent their complete extinction. Since then, new populations were released into the wild at a wilderness park in 2016, and the mice began reproducing independently a year later. According to San Diego Zoo officials, the species once inhabited an extensive range from Los Angeles to the Tijuana River Valley, but human encroachment and habitat loss since the early 30s has led to the steep decline in their population. Federal wildlife officials listed the mouse as endangered in 1994. Turning now to international news, organizers of the Paris Olympics want to make the Games more eco-friendly. Officials say their goal is to limit carbon dioxide emissions for the event to 1.58 million metric tons, or about the equivalent of 1.5 million one-way economy flights from New York to Paris. That's according to a climate and sustainability consultancy group. Organizers say they've targeted reductions across 3 categories. That's construction, transportation, and operations. Now, when it comes to building, officials say using wood, low-carbon cement, and salvaged materials helped reduce emissions by 30% compared with traditional methods. Plus, 95% of the event spaces being used will be pre-existing or temporary facilities, which will further offer a big break. Reductions in operations also include food. The Games catering head says the average meal prepared in France produces about 2 kilograms of CO2. And in an effort to halve that number, Paris is aiming to source 80% of ingredients locally and offer spectators 60% plant-based foods. Organizers also say they intend to use 100% renewable power from wind and solar farms, plus solar panels on some venues to help cut down on emissions. The European Union is scaling up efforts to tackle textile waste. Starting next year, EU member states will be required to establish separate collection systems for clothing waste. The new mandate comes as the bloc aims to improve its textile waste management system in an effort to keep clothing out of landfills and incinerators. That's according to the European Environment Agency. The EU generated nearly 7 million tons of textile waste in 2020, which is about 16 kilograms per person. However, only about a quarter of the waste was collected separately for reuse and recycling. A boom in growing mushrooms at home in the UK has some plant experts concerned. According to top-level gardeners in the country, fears are rising that the population practice could lead to a biodiversity disaster. Scientists explain non-native mushrooms grown in gardens or disposed of in compost heaps could become invasive and decimate local ecosystems. Researchers add the exotic fungi could end up spreading through the soil, altering the microbiology, and become almost impossible to get rid of. Previously popular garden plants that have ended up becoming invasive, harming homes and the environment, include the Japanese knotweed and bamboo. Experts suggest when buying mushroom growing kits, growers should plant species that are native to the UK, such as oyster mushrooms and coral tooth fungus, so they don't spread and damage the local environment. Coming up, a groundbreaking discovery marks a key development in understanding weather patterns and improving predictions. Stay tuned. More on that story is just ahead on EarthX News. In a move that's making waves across the country, Vermont has become the first state to hold fossil fuel companies accountable for their role in climate change. In a new law modeled after the EPA's Superfund program, fossil fuel companies must pay a share of the damages caused by climate change, including the devastating floods and other extreme weather events that have battered the state in recent years. Vermont is the 9th fastest warming state in the country. It's one of the least populated and has the lowest GDP in the country. Several European utility companies are scaling back their renewable targets, according to media reports. Some of the companies tamping down their targets include Statkraft, the largest producer of hydropower in Europe. Company officials say the organization is reviewing its annual targets for new renewables capacity. Meantime, Portuguese energy company EDP is cutting back its plans, citing high interest rates and lower power prices. Those announcements come as Denmark's Ørsted, the world's largest offshore wind developer, said it was reducing its renewable goals for 2030 by more than 10 gigawatts after it abandoned 2 large US-based projects due to rising costs. The push to develop renewables comes after countries agreed to work towards tripling capacity to 11,000 gigawatts by 2030 at the COP28 climate summit in December. However, industry analysts suggest the number of companies scaling back and reviewing plans highlights the economic difficulties of transitioning away from fossil fuels, saying, quote, "There has been a big reality check around renewables growth, and there's been a huge change in the cost environment." Climate scientists at Oxford University say a new state-of-the-art weather map may help better predict extreme weather events with more accuracy. Shelby Wilder reports.
For the first time, researchers have demonstrated how advanced weather forecasts can predict the impact of human activity on major weather events. An analysis of weather in the United States and the United Kingdom indicated that global warming, driven by human activity, has intensified severe weather events and increased their likelihood. Climate scientists at Oxford University have successfully demonstrated the influence of greenhouse gas emissions on extreme weather through state-of-the-art forecasting models.
The first time we're able to provide estimates of the role of human influence in extreme weather events that are as reliable, using the same reliable tools that we use to forecast the weather every day. And that's an enormous step forward, because we need these estimates to be reliable because people are making billion-dollar decisions on the back of them. So understanding not the details of exactly what day in the year that a heat wave might occur in 2049, but how the risk of a heat wave such as this one is increasing over time.
This groundbreaking discovery marks a significant advancement in understanding weather patterns and improving predictions. For EarthX, I'm Shelby Wilder.
Shelby Wilder, thank you. Microsoft has developed a high-tech weather tool. Researchers at the big tech company have unveiled Aurora, an AI model that could transform weather forecasting and air pollution monitoring on a global scale. Scientists say by leveraging vast amounts of atmospheric data and innovative deep learning techniques, Aurora produces highly accurate predictions at unprecedented speeds, paving the way for a new era in environmental modeling. For example, researchers say the AI system can generate a 5-day global air pollution forecast and a 10-day high-resolution weather forecast in under 1 minute, outperforming traditional numerical models. And its computational speed is estimated to be 5,000 times faster than the integrated forecasting system. Other companies like Google have also developed a competing AI forecasting system called GraphCast, but researchers say Aurora has outperformed its rival on most metrics. One of the key strengths of Aurora lies in its extensive pre-training process. The model was trained on over 1 million hours of diverse weather and climate simulations, enabling it to develop a comprehensive understanding of atmospheric dynamics. Engineers in the UK have devised a new way of making low-carbon concrete. Researchers at the University of Cambridge say the method involves taking recycled cement powder and using it in place of the chemical mixture, or flux, that protects molten steel during the refining process. Scientists say the cement-based waste, or slag, created when steel is recycled is then siphoned off, cooled, and turned back into the high-quality binder contained in Portland concrete. The UK engineering team says the revolutionary method can be an emissions-free process if the furnace used to heat the steel and cement-based flux is powered by renewable electricity. Cement is the key ingredient in concrete and responsible for about 90% of the material's carbon emissions, according to industry analysts. But now researchers say the transformative solution developed in England could play a big role in the worldwide effort to achieve net zero emissions. There's much more ahead on EarthX News. A recently completed deep-sea expedition has produced some extraordinary images of organisms living in the Arctic abyss. Sarah Williamson reports.
The Arctic deep ocean. Vital to understanding the impact of climate change, the region is now also threatened by deep-sea mining.
Global Arctic warming is happening up to 4 times faster than the global average. This means the ecosystems are changing really fast. So mapping and getting more knowledge about those ecosystems, about the species there now, before it's too late, is very important.
Shrimps covered in hairy bacteria, stalked jellyfish that look like flowers, crustaceans, and fish with antifreeze proteins. The discoveries were made at depths ranging from 2,000 to 3,700 metres across some of the Arctic's most extreme habitats.
When you see something that's never been seen before, it's very exciting.
With Norway becoming the first country to approve commercial deep-sea mining within their territorial waters back in January 2024, it is vital to study and understand these ecosystems now.
We urgently need to build up a baseline that will give us the possibility to understand what will be the changes in the future.
Further imaging, sequencing and taxonomy will be completed in October at the Ocean Census Species Discovery. For EarthX, I'm Sarah Williamson.
Sarah Williamson, thank you. Researchers make a remarkable find in the waters off the coast of southern Chile. Scientists with a conservation group called Rewilding Chile say they've recently discovered colonies of red hydrocorals within a national marine reserve in the Strait of Magellan. Organization officials say finding the hydrocorals at this location was surprising because it's not where they're normally found.
It is an indicator species of healthy environments, and they haven't been described in very shallow waters and not so much in the southern zone. Therefore, this finding becomes super relevant because we found red hydrocorals from 1.2 meters depth in the sea described up to 25 to 30 meters deep.
Researchers with the group say the organism, which is normally found at deeper depths and not so far south, is particularly valuable because they create habitats for other species. Divers with the organization say they've documented the hydrocorals harboring a variety of sea life, including sea urchins, hermit crabs, and sea snails. And before we leave you back on land, we head down under, where the hearts of animal lovers are melting. Australia's Perth Zoo recently posted an adorable video showing one of its red pandas, named Sombar, munching on bamboo stems and leaves, earning some big brownie points for an irresistibly cute demeanor. Accompanying the delightful video, wildlife officials at the zoo shared a couple of tidbits about the animal, including a couple of fun facts about their paws that are completely covered in fur, which adds extra grip for climbing branches and helps keep them warm. Plus, they have a hidden pseudo-thumb to help them grasp those bamboo branches, which they do love to eat. Currently, the Nepalese red pandas are listed as endangered due to its declining population, but thanks to regionally coordinated programs like the Perth Zoo, they're working to help save the species. That's it for this edition of EarthX News. Please join us again next week. I'm Christina Thompson.